Hi, welcome to Comics and Cosplay. I'm your host Ian from Saturday Morning Cosplay, and today we'll be doing part 2 of our all-new Marvel Now comics and costume review. So if you remember from last week, we did part 1 of our all-new Marvel Now costume and comics review, where we reviewed various costumes like Wolverine, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. Today is part 2 of this segment, where we will finish up the second part of the all-new series. First on our list today is She-Hulk. It seems that Marvel's decided to bring back another She-Hulk book. If you remember previously in Marvel Now, there was a red She-Hulk book, which I was very excited for, but unfortunately it was canceled very quickly due to poor art and overall lacking of an interesting story. In this new version, while there aren't a lot of reference images of what the new costume will look like, it appears they've switched her from her gymnast leotard look to more of an MMA style fighter. I'm curious to see where this book goes and overall She-Hulk story. Up next is Revolutionary War. Now this story is more of an event-based type story rather than an ongoing series. What I like is that it's about the Marvel UK heroes from the Marvel UK imprint that existed about 20 years ago. And it's nice to see a story that's not based in the typical US, New York City settings. While the premise of this book hasn't been to revamp and overhaul a lot of costumes, there have been minor tweaks to each character. For example, Captain Britain now has a patch on each shoulder blade, as well as his stripes have been streamed down for a more slim and sleek look. Up next is X-Force. Now it appears that Marvel's decided to collapse and condense its two X-Force books, Uncanny X-Force and Cable and the X-Force, into one book just called X-Force. The basic premise now is that Cable is leading a team that includes himself, Psylocke, Fantomex, and Meryl. I personally am not as excited for this change, as I think the previous cast team lists were much better, as well as I liked a lot of the relationships and dynamics between the characters like Colossus and Domino and Spiral and Psylocke. What I like even less about the overall team makeups is the new costume updates. It seems that they've taken certain characters and made their costumes either worse or haven't improved characters that were in much needed of a costume update or revamp. First, starting with Cable, I'd like to think someone at Marvel saw my top 10 worst costume videos of 2013 and realized that he needed an update. However, they haven't done a lot of work on this character and in some ways have made him look even worse. First, they've given him an eye patch headband combo that isn't really explained or why those two pieces needed to be attached. While they have made improvements to his arm from the overall clunky design, it still could use more work. Plus, they've given him a digital camo cape, which doesn't really help the character that much either. Next, for Fantomex, they've taken him out of his iconic white and black look and put him in an all-white look with red trim around the edges. While I didn't mind the all-white costume in the Fantomex Max miniseries, I don't think the red trim is helping the costume much here, and thought it looked much better in its previous version. As for Psylocke, they haven't done much to her either. She's still wearing a full bodysuit, and they've only added patches of digital camo on her knees and elbows. And finally, new team member Meryl seems to have gotten the short end of the stick, as she has one of the worst costumes of the whole team. She is now wearing a combination of a sports bra and cargo pants. I'm not really sure if she should be running special ops secret missions or going to a rave at Coachella. And one overall stylistic decision I don't understand is the addition of digital camo on each character's costume in random places. It doesn't make sense when you have a team member like Fantomex who can create optical illusions, or at least every character should probably be wearing it from head to toe. Next on the list is New Warriors. Now, if you've been reading the current Marvel Now Nova series, you'll know that they've been hinting at this book returning for quite some time now. Hopefully this New Warriors team will do better than the previous. As my friends at the Word of the Nerd podcast pointed out, they were the cause of the entire Civil War debacle in the Marvel Universe. While I wasn't initially very excited about a New Warriors book, once I saw the concept art as well as the cast of new characters, my anticipation has only grown over time. I think this is an interesting, diverse cast of characters, plus a lot of great cosplay options, especially for female cosplayers. Specifically, I like Araceli. She feels like the Marvel version of Raven from Teen Titans over in the DC Universe. Also, there's Sun Girl, who first premiered in Superior Spider-Man, has a great bodysuit as well as jetpack. And my favorite character of the whole new team is Water Snake, because obviously, you know, here at Comics and Cosplay, we love hot pants, which her costume prominently features. Next on the list is Moon Knight. He seems that he's returning back to New York City for further adventures. While I'm not a big Moon Knight fan, not that I dislike the character, I've just never read a lot of stories with him, I am excited for the changes in his costume. I like that they've gone from the solid all white to more of a white and black with various panels. And I think this will ultimately help cosplayers in general, because this is one of those costumes that, while it looks great on pages, doesn't translate as well in real life. Up next is Avengers Undercover, which is Marvel's continuation of the Avengers Arena storyline. Now, Avengers Arena was Marvel's versions of the Hunger Games, but I didn't read these as I read Battle Royale first, and I tend to prefer the original versus the knockoffs. While it seems this is going to be a new cast of characters, I'll have to wait till this book comes out to have more of an opinion over the overall costume design as well as plot lines. And finally on our list today is Ms. Marvel. No, not Captain Marvel, but Ms. Marvel, which is the story of an Inhuman who takes up the mantle of Ms. Marvel to fight crime in Jersey City. I have mixed feelings for the overall plot as well as costume design for this book. Starting with the book, I do like their expanding the Inhumanity storyline coming out of Infinity, as well as adding more additional minority characters that we don't traditionally see. However, I do worry that the book might further certain stereotypes about Pakistani Americans based on the synopsis that came out for the book, but hopefully the recent backlash will have Marvel reevaluate certain plot lines and overall story arc. As for the costume, as you know from my previous top 10 worst costumes video, that I'm not a big fan of the overall Captain Marvel design aesthetic. However, I will admit that this costume does make perfect sense for the book, as the character is a fangirl of Captain Marvel and has decided to base her costume off the character's original design. And that wraps up part 2 of our all-new Marvel Now costumes preview. What do you guys think? Are you excited to do any of these costumes for any future cons? Let us know in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget Comics and Cosplay is going on the road. We'll be at KatsuCon this February in Washington, D.C. If you'd like to be featured in one of our videos, please click on the video next to me for more information. So let's see what you guys had to say about the top 10 worst costumes of 2013 video. So you guys had a lot of comments about this video and was by far our most popular and most commented video in all of Comics and Cosplay's history. People like Paul May pointed out how Solomon Grundy probably should have been added onto this list, and I have to agree that this might have been an oversight on my part, as the new zombie plant version wasn't that appealing or interesting of a costume design. People like James Reed and others question why Stargirl was on this list, citing that she is an immature character and should probably have a childish costume. However, I would contend that her new backstory doesn't really fit this new persona. Given that she's on a top secret organization, Justice League of America, it seems unlikely that Amanda Waller, a strong, powerful female character, would let one of her top agents into the field in such a costume, similar to how Nick Fury did to Miles Morales in Ultimate Spider-Man. As to be expected, the most commented and critiqued upon costume on the entire list was the addition of Captain Marvel. People like Frustrated White Male said, "These are primary colors and you should be ashamed for not knowing them." However, I do know they are primary colors, and I also do know a certain thing about color theory and complementary colors. The fact is, the primary colors aren't necessarily natural complementary colors of each other, which means they don't always fit together well. While I'm sure someone will cite that Superman does use all 3 colors, the yellow is a small portion of his costume. Also, given the fact that that's one costume that you've seen probably a billion times by the time you're 2, so that you've already come accustomed to the look and it seems much more natural. I think a different color choice or overall costume layout change would help this overall look a lot better. And while everyone did rave that this book was so great and that it should be one of the best costumes, I think the fact that the book was canceled by Marvel and had continually poor sales proves that you guys probably didn't really love the costume as much as you thought you did. And that's it for today's episode. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Also, be sure to check out the Comics and Cosplay Twitter and Tumblr feeds, as I provide regular costume updates as well as convention news. I'm your host Ian from Saturday Morning Cosplay, and as always, I'll see you on the con floor.